Good morning, students. Today we are going to start the last part of this chapter, the Mughal Empire. This is the chapter, and today we'll discuss the topic the Mughal Empire in the 17th century and after. Till now, we have discussed about the Mughal Empire, the beginning of Mughal empires, how it was established, how it was expanded by different Mughal emperors, and what kind of administration system was there, what was their military system during Mughal Empire. So let's start the topic in 17th century and after, the situation of Mughal Empire. Each and every sentence is very important, and you have to try to understand all the sentences, and then you will be able to understand this topic clear. So that's why we are going to discuss this topic with the help of the textbook. The administrative and military efficiency of the Mughal Empire led to great economic and commercial prosperity. It means during Mughal Empire, the state became very rich and prosper due to the collection of revenue, and it became possible only due to the good administration and military efficiency, because during the Mughal Empire, administration of Mughals was very good and military efficiency also was excellent. International travelers described it as fabled land of wealth. During Mughal Empire, this complete arena was considered very wealthy, but these same visitors were also appalled at the state of poverty that existed side by side with the greatest opulence. The inequalities were glaring, means during the Mughal Empire in the society, although the prosperity was there, but big differences were found between the rich and poor people. Documents from the 20th year of Shah Jahan's reign inform us that the highest ranking Mansabdars were the highest rank. In the previous video we discussed, were only 445 in number out of a total 8,000. Clear? Highest ranking Mansabdars were only 445 and total Mansabdars approximately 8,000. So only 445 were having the highest rank. This small number, a mere 5.6% of the total number of Mansabdars, received 61.5%. Means these people, only a few number of Mansabdars, 5.6% Mansabdars, used to have 61.5% of the total estimated revenue of the empire as salaries for themselves and their troopers. As we already have discussed that Mansabdars used to get the salaries as well as revenue as in form of jagirs for themselves and their troopers. So in this way, only a few Mansabdars got highest number of wealth there. During Mughal Empire, the Mughal emperors and their Mansabdars spent a great deal of their income on salaries and goods. It means on the salaries and goods, they used to spend a lot money, right, of their total income. This expenditure benefited the artisans and peasantry who supplied them with goods and produce. Means they used to wear clothes and very costly clothes. So those people who used to weave the clothes and produce the raw material for clothes, they got benefit. But the scale of revenue collection left very little for investment in the hands of the primary producers. For example, the peasants and the artisan. The poorest amongst them lived from hand to mouth, and they could hardly consider investing in additional resources, tools, supplies to increase productivity. It means most of the producers, you have to listen carefully, most of the producers, they only earn their livelihood and hand to mouth. They were in condition of hand to mouth, means how much they earned, just they spend on their livelihood for means being alive, and they could not spend the money on as investment, clear, to increase their prosperity, to increase their income, purchasing tools, supplying goods, like these things. So the wealthier peasantry and artisanal groups, the merchants, bankers profited in this economic world. All the people could not get the benefit. The enormous wealth and resources commanded by the Mughal elite made them an extremely powerful group of people in the late 17th century. Late 17th century means during the reign of Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb. I am talking about the duration of Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb. At that time, what happened? As the authority of the Mughal Emperor slowly declined after the death of Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb, before the death of Aurangzeb, means these kinds of wealth and resources commanded by the Mughal elite, means higher classes people in Mughal, made them an extremely powerful group of people in the late 17th century, right? But after that, as the authority of the Mughal emperor slowly declined, his servants emerged as powerful centers of power in the regions. For example, in Murshidabad, right, Murshid Quli Khan became powerful. He was the Subedar appointed by the Mughal emperors, but later he became very powerful. Clear? In the same way, in Hyderabad, in southern parts of the country, and in some of the central parts of the country, the Subedars and the employees appointed by the Mughal emperors became very powerful, and they opposed their authorities. For example, Mughal emperors. They constituted new dynasties and held command of provinces like Hyderabad, Awadh. Although they continued to recognize the Mughal emperor in Delhi as their master. By the 18th century, means beginning of 1700, the provinces of the empire had consolidated their independent political identities. We'll read in detail about this in chapter 10. Just you have to understand the thing. In this way, we have completed the chapter, but one more thing is left here, elsewhere. Here the thing is given about kings and queens. Just we'll try to understand with the help of this box. Here there were several great monarchs, all near contemporaries, means during the Mughal emperor, in other countries in different parts of the world in the 16th century. These included the ruler of Ottoman Turkey, Sultan Suleiman. You have to remember the name, Sultan Suleiman, 1520 to 1566. During his rule, the Ottoman state expanded into Europe, seizing Hungary, besieging Austria, and his armies also seized Baghdad and Iraq, much of the North Africa, all the way into Morocco, acknowledged Ottoman authority. Suleiman also reconstructed the Ottoman navy. It means during his reign, Ottoman Empire became very powerful. Its domination over the Eastern Mediterranean brought the navy into competition with Spain. It means during his reign, navy became very stronger and as competent to Spain. In the Arabian Sea, it challenged the Portuguese. So you can see that he seized different kinds of areas, these kinds of areas in different regions, and after that he competed with the Spain and Portuguese. The monarchs was given the title of Al Kanuni. Why? Because it means lawgiver, because of the large number of regulations, Kanun regulations passed during his reign. These were aimed to standardize administrative procedures throughout the expanding domains of the empire, and especially to protect peasantry from forced labor and extraordinary taxes. It means in entire region controlled by Sultan Suleiman, he wanted to protect the ways in which the people were exploited by another group of the society. So he wanted to protect the peasantry from forced labor, right, and extraordinary taxes. And he also wanted to make equal laws and rules and regulations in his state, and administrative procedure also wanted to make standardized. Later in the 17th century, when public order declined in the Ottoman domains, the reign of Suleiman Kanuni was remembered as a period of ideal governance. So, dear students, this was the position of ideal governance, that he wanted to make equality, he wanted to make equal administrative procedure, he also wanted to protect peasantry from forced labor and exploitation of the people by another group in the society, and he expanded his empire by defeating different kinds of other states or other kings by controlling the areas in various parts of the neighboring areas, and as well as other European powers also, right? So this was the chapter as we discussed here, and you have to revise the chapter. If you have any problem, you can ask me by writing in the comment box. Thank you. Have a nice day.